Hi, welcome to Donegal Dad. I'm Mark. Hi to all my new subscribers, and if you are new here, hit that subscribe button. Today we're going to be looking at double slips. So here we are on the layout. We've got two double slips to put in and another point. I already have this point installed. So we're going to have a look and talk about the double slips now and see what's involved with them. Here we have a Peco Code 100 Insulfrog double slip. The best way to think of a double slip is as two points joined together. So as an example here we have 2 points back to back, which is the same as a double slip. Obviously the double slip takes up a lot less space. So let's have a look. What do we have to do to the double slip to get it ready for install? We'll look at the operation of the double slip once it's installed, because it's a lot easier to explain when there's locomotives going over it. But what do we need to do to get it ready for installation? I've already put insulated fish plates on all the ends. So we need to add a power supply to it, which we'll do through these points here. We probably will melt a bit off the plastic here because they are quite hard to get into, but that shouldn't be too much of a problem. We are going to be using the switch on the point motor for making these parts of the frog live. So to do that, we need to snip these two wires here, join them together, and the same on this side, and we'll put a green wire on either side. So when we put the point motors on, it'll be the point motor on this side that controls this frog, and the point motor on this side that controls this frog. That'll become clearer when we demonstrate the operation. I've cut these wires going to the frog here and twisted them together, and I've done the same on that end. So now what I'm going to do is attach a green wire. So I use green wire for my frogs. So first off, dip it in a bit of flux. So I'm going to tin the end of the wire first. That's the end of the wire tinned, and then I'll do it on the other one. Just dip it in the flux. Run the tip along there with a bit of solder. Yeah. Again, take a little bit of flux. Put it on these frog wires. Take your soldering iron, a little bit of solder. Put it next to the wire. And that's all you need. The flux helps the solder flow and make the connection. And we'll do the same on the other side. Hold it against it and hold it in place just for a second. There it is attached. Now to further protect it, we'll take some heat shrink. Run that over, and then use the side of the soldering iron just so it adds heat to the shrink and it shrinks down. It adds it a bit of strength and also keeps it insulated. Now we'll repeat the same for putting the droppers in here. I'm going to put a bit of flux, dab it in there. Now you don't want to use too much flux, because if you use too much flux it causes the solder to run too much, and there's a chance it could run around through onto your rails, which then would cause derailments. Now this is going to be a bit tricky to do because there isn't much space in there. So we'll get some solder on the tip, the soldering iron, and just drop it in there. Same on that side. And we get our wires, which I've already cut. And we're going to tin these again. So I'll dip them in the flux. Bit of solder. Just bend them over. We'll just do a test fit, see how they fit in there. A little bit long, so I'll just cut a little bit off. Again, remember your wiring convention. Mine's is black to the back. I'll make sure I put this at the back where I'm going to put it. And a little bit of solder in. Hold it momentarily, and then that's it attached. And we'll do the same. Right. Always remember to keep the tip of your soldering iron clean. And there's the two wires attached. So that's it ready now, wired to go onto the layout. There's the slip in the position I want it in. I've added on this bit of straight track here so I can check the track spacing. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mark some holes. So I'm using my pin vise, drill a little hole just to mark where the cables are going in. So that's marking holes for the frogs and the power cables. Now we need to look at holes for the point motors. So what we need to do is hold them in the center position, then using the pin vise, drill through to mark the hole, and we'll do the same on this one. So holding it in the center position, now we have holes in position. So I'll take the slip away and we can see where I've made the marks. Now if we just get a pencil and highlight those marks, then we know where to drill. I've marked the holes for the wires. I'm going to drill them out now, and then I'll show you what I do to drill the holes for lining up the point motors. Little tip, if you have an old tray like this, I stick this underneath just to collect any sawdust. It stops making a mess on your track below or anything you have below. So we'll just drill these holes now. We have the two marks here where we're going to put in the point motor to control the point. So what we do is we take the pin vise, make sure it's 90 degrees so you've got a nice vertical hole, and we're going to drill that hole all the way through. Like so. And then we get the point motor. These are the point motors I'm using. This is a Seep type solenoid motor. Built into it is a switch for controlling, we could use it to control lights, but in this case we're using it to control the priority on the frog. Now to fit these, drilled a small hole. I've got a little piece of plastic here. that I slide over the bar underneath, and that keeps this in the center. And then we just find the hole underneath, so while you're holding the point motor in place, take the slip, slide the rod from the point motor into the tie bar of the slip, have the slip in the position that you want, and then you can see the tie bar on the slip, and you make sure your point motor is going to be in the same orientation as that, so when it throws the switch the right way. So the idea of having just that hole there, you have the pin in the center. When you put the point in, you had this in the center, so what you can do now when you have it in the right orientation is just screw it in place, so you have the screw holes already, and then we'll unscrew it, take it out again, and then we'll drill a 10mm hole. So I'm going to screw the point motor in place, and then I'll let you see once it's in place. There you can see the point motor is in place at the correct orientation for the point. Now if we look down from the point, you can see the point bar is coming up. I use a crocodile clip like this just to hold it in place to stop it dropping out. So now I'm happy with the orientation of that and it's screwed in. I'll screw the other one in for the point on this side, and then we'll go from there. So now we have both point motors in and positioned where we want them. We take them out and drill a 10mm hole to allow the wire to throw the point. Here we have the Seep point motor on the bench, ready to be wired up. So we'll look at the terminals that are on it. So A is for the left side of the solenoid, and B is for the right side of the solenoid, and then C is common to both solenoids. So these are the feeds that throw the switch. We then have D and E, which are the feeds that go off to your lights, or in this case to the feed to feed the frog, which comes out of point F. So I'm going to go ahead and solder this up now. To solder them up, I'm going to put a little dab of flux on each terminal, and then take the soldering iron and just put a little dab of solder on each terminal. Cool. Now, using my wiring convention, I use a yellow wire on the B terminal. Then the C is common. So I use a black wire. Then D and E are the feeds going to the bus wire. So the D is the positive side of the buzz wire. E is the negative. Clean the soldering iron and just get a bit more solder on there. F is for the frog, which we use a green wire. So this will attach onto the frog wire that we've already soldered onto the point. And then finally, the other side of the solenoid. And that's the wires for the point motor. So I have another one to do for the double slip because it takes 2 point motors, so I'll do that one and then we'll come back and do the fitting. There's the point motors in place. Now you need to make sure the point motors are the right way around, so when they throw, the onboard switch sends the correct priority to the frog. So how I tell they're the right way around is the 2 feeds on board that go to the main bus wire. My wiring convention is black to the back, so I make sure the black wire is towards the back and the red wire is towards the front. That way I know the switch is wired the right way around. So to test it, I've got my little track tester here, and I'll put that on, and we can see it lights up. If I put it over the other entrance, it doesn't. And if I manually flick the motor underneath, you can see it's now thrown across and lights up. Likewise, we'll check on the other side. That lights up. And on the other side it doesn't. And if we manually throw the switch, we can see it lights up. So as you can see now, all the point work, the double slips are all in place. The point motors have all been fitted. I haven't cut the point rods off yet until I do the wiring, test everything, make sure everything's working. Then I can just nip these rods off with the Dremel. So here we have all the wires for controlling the Seep point motors. Now remember, from the Seep point they went on to A and B and C for the common. So we need to wire all these now into switches. We're going to be using these momentary action switches. So they return to the center, so they're spring loaded. So you can flick down and flick up to change the point to the direction you want. Now we're going to mount these onto a board. This is one I've made out now. This is going to be a temporary board. So you can see I've drawn out the track plan, and we're going to put switches at these points here. So first I'm going to drill these out, put all the switches in, and then we'll go on to the next stage. There's the switches all attached to the board. They're all working. You can see all the terminals at the back, so we need to wire this up now. So if we look at a switch, we can see on the back there's 3 terminals. So we'll wire the live to the center terminal, and then to either side will go the yellow or red wire to go to the solenoid. Now to power the system, we're going to use a 16 volt AC supply. It's going to go into this CD unit, which has got 2 capacitors on it. This gives a nice jolt of electricity to get the solenoid to move. So that will come in from the power supply, and then one lead will come out red, which will daisy chain to all the terminals on the switches, and then all the black common wires from the point motors will go into here. So I'm going to solder a daisy chain red wire to all the middle terminals, so a live feed can go to the switch. There's the power daisy chained to all the switches on the center pin. I've taken it and connected it to the positive on the CDU, and the CDU is connected to a 16 volt AC transformer. I've also taken the blackout for the neutral side, and I've pulled the wires through for this first point, which is the one we're going to look at now for connecting to the switches. So if you remember with the solenoid, when I wired them up, I put a yellow cable to point A, red cable to point B, and the C common was the black cable. So if you energize the yellow cable, it's going to throw it that way. If you energize the B cable, it will throw it that way. So what I've done here now is we're going to look at this point here. Okay, I've taken the cables and I've got the yellow and red from the solenoid come in here. The black common is attached to the common on the CDU. And then for testing purposes, I've used some crocodile leads to attach it to the back of the switch. So I'm happy with the connections on there. So when I throw it, it throws it the way I want it to. So if we look at the switch now, when I throw it up, it moves the point off. When I throw it down, it puts it to straight. So I'm happy with the orientation of that switch and the way it's throwing. So when I look on the back, I know the red wire has to be soldered onto the top terminal and the yellow wire onto the bottom terminal, and that'll be correct for that switch. And then what I can do is I can just go through and repeat that process on all the other point motors to get these all wired up correctly. One thing to remember when you're using switches to control a double slip is that remember that this point motor controls this end and this point motor controls this end. So you need to make sure that that point motor is actually that switch there and that point motor goes to that switch there because they're swapped around. Remember what we said earlier on when we looked at it, you've got to imagine that a double slip is basically 2 points back to back, but they're slid over each other like that. So this one controls that end and that one controls that end. So I'm going to carry on now soldering up all the point motors to these switches, and then when it's all done we'll come back and do some further testing. There's all the switches soldered up now, so all the point motors are connected now. You'll notice on these two here where I've connected 2 point motors to one switch. That's for the likes of these switches here where they cross over, where you want to throw both switches at the same time. I'm going to screw this onto here now temporarily, and then I can flick all the switches, test them and do any adjustments to the point motors that are required. Double slips are all in, tested is completed on it. I've cut away all the pins from the solenoid motors, so let's run a few trains through them so you can see how they work. So we're going to bring the Class 56 along the main line straight through the slip. This time we're going to bring it through the slip and take it out this exit. So we need to throw this point and we need to throw the point on the slip. So if we look at the mimic panel, we want it to go down and that point go up. So I'll flick that again so you can see for the loco to go down this way, it's those blades that move. So now we'll send it through the point. And we'll take it back again. And now we'll go back and we'll send it back up the other way. So now we're going to send the loco back up through this way, through both double slips onto this line. So we need to throw them all. So we're going to throw the first slip up, the second slip down and up. And there we have it straight through. So now we'll run it straight through. So there you can see how versatile double slips are. Really it's just 2 points back to back, taking up less space than conventional 2 points. And you can see how when you throw this end, it controls this, and when you throw this, it controls that end. Once you get that into your mind, you should have no problems. Hope you found that useful today. We covered a lot. We looked at the double slips, fitting up the solenoid point motors, wiring up the mimic panel, wiring up the point motors, getting it all working, showing you how the double slips worked. One thing I'm going to do in the future is when I get the proper panel in, is I will putting LED lights on here so I can see which way it's thrown. It's a much better visual aid, so at a glance you can see what way the points are thrown. So thanks for watching. Please don't forget to leave your comments down below. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share. And thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.